hosted by Steve Jennier and his satanic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be around this wild, wacky, and sometimes disturbing world of ours. Yes, that's the intro to the Mindset Podcast, a weekly attempt to open eyes and shedding light on what's really going on in the world, all done by ripping apart the media madness that masquerades as news. Join me, Gareth Davis, every Sunday on the Mindset Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting services such as iTunes, Stitcher, and so on. Or you can go directly to the main Mindset website. That's www.mindsetcentral.com. Check out the Mindset Podcast. Bring your curiosity, your opinions, and a sense of humor. And remember that some worldviews are stranger than others.
And welcome to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live on the New Visions Radio Network, and of course, simulcasting live on our YouTube channel. And, it's been, weather-wise, it's been incredibly weird, Alex.
It has, yeah.
I don't know, we're going from snow to, this incredibly, this heat.
Yeah, my birthday was great.
Back to this miserable rain, and heat again. I don't know. It's just been crazy.
And it's calling for 18 degrees on Tuesday, so that's pretty crazy too.
18 degrees, is that Fahrenheit or Celsius?
No, it's Celsius. Come on. We're in Canada. Come on.
Are we?
I think so. Last time I checked.
What was that?
Last time I checked.
Last time you checked.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're not dreaming?
Oh, nice segue. And for those folks listening on YouTube or watching us on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell notification so you're notified of any upcoming shows.
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter as well at Dark Discussions. Our Facebook group is facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Or no, I see it's been a while since I've said the group. Just type in Nocturnal Frequency
Radio. That's the easy way out.
In the search box. And of course, our Instagram. And yeah, like and subscribe on the YouTube channel as well. So yeah, we've got a pretty interesting guest tonight.
Yes, we do. Karen Konkoly. Did I say it right?
Yes. Hi.
There you go. Awesome. And okay, let's get right into it. You're part of a study that tested lucid dreamers and the ability to communicate with them. Is that correct?
Yep, that's what we did.
Okay, so do you want to just go into the study a little bit? Like, what was the aim of the study, really? Just to like sort of let the listeners know, because this is sort of a little bit off topic for our show. We deal mostly with the paranormal, but this is something that's intrigued me for a long time as well. So that's why I wanted to have you on. So if you want to just...
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting because like lucid dreaming was considered paranormal for a while.
Yeah.
And then in the 1980s, figured out, two people actually at the same time figured out that while you're in a lucid dream, if you move your eyes volitionally in like a predetermined way, everything else in your body is completely paralyzed, but you can get that eye movement corresponds to what your eyes and your sleeping body are actually doing. And so lucid dreamers could send signals out to experimenters. And so that kind of discovery in the 1980s turned lucid dreaming from like I don't believe you, they must have been waking, they must have been making it up, kind of like paranormal-ish experience, like an OBE, to like actually being something that was scientifically verifiable phenomenon. And so that is what we also used in our study. That's how dreamers can communicate out to experimenters. And then we tried to communicate back into dreamers by just softly asking them questions. So it's been known for a while. You might have had your like alarm clock incorporated into your dream. Like, one time I had a dream and the Beatles came in because Here Comes the Sun was my alarm clock. And so that's what we tried to do. We asked them these really soft questions, and we had different teams that did it different ways. And then the dreamers responded out with these eye movements. And so that had never been done before, a kind of complicated-ish conversation with, verbal questions in and the dreamers responding out with eye movements, or one team used twitching.
So I guess my question, I guess, would be, I know it's kind of maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but what's the end game for this sort of study? Like what are you trying to accomplish by trying to communicate with lucid dreams, or lucid dreamers rather?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different applications, but one of them that I think is kind of important is like so much of what we know about the human mind is based on people who are awake, like scientifically. But if you could actually have a dialogue with somebody who's dreaming, you could start to give them like a declarative memory test while they're sleeping, or like lots of different scientific stuff that's only been done for people who are awake could now be done on people who are asleep. But there's a lot of other kind of applications too. You can imagine somebody who had like PTSD or something, has nightmares, they can't always control their nightmares. You could have like therapy in real time to help them, or we've thought of a lot of other ideas. I don't know if you want to hear them all right now.
Yeah, I can see that. No, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
What are some of the symbols or signals that you're able to control your dream?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So when you're in rapid eye movement sleep or REM sleep, everything, all your muscles are paralyzed except your eyes can move and you can twitch, like you might have seen like puppies twitching or something, and then you can breathe. And so with these kind of residual capabilities, those can relate to what somebody's doing in a dream. So if you clench your fist in a dream, that can come out as a twitch on your forearm. Or if you sniff 3 times, then you're actually sniffing in your body. And so those are different ways that dreamers can communicate. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Pretty simple, pretty basic.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, how would you use these sort of abilities, if you will, to actually control the dream itself? Can you do that?
Yeah. So that's been something that's been going on for a while too. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do. If you become lucid in a dream, you can start to make decisions in the dream, and then kind of, you don't necessarily need two-way communication to study this, but like, it's interesting to see the limits of dream control, right? Like there's one Facebook group of people who try to do lucid dream experiments. And I heard of this guy who the experiment of the month was try to flush yourself down the toilet. And he like could not do this in his dream, even though it was a dream. He knew it should be possible. He just could not mentally, there's no way that he could get himself down the toilet. And so you can kind of control your dream, but sometimes there are limits too. And it's kind of interesting to think about why you might have those.
So is there, I don't know if you may be able to answer this, but is there a way of actually inducing a lucid dream, do you think?
Yeah, so that's something that was really important to our study, because although lucid dreams have been studied for a while, it's kind of remained a fringe topic, in part because it's hard to like induce a lucid dream at a specific time, right? Like even frequent lucid dreamers might have one lucid dream a month. But if you bring them into a sleep lab, you need them to have a lucid dream in the next 2 hours. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways that the teams used in a study to induce lucid dreams in the lab. And then there's also ways that people can do it at home, some of which are more effective than others.
So I'm assuming the study is ongoing. Is that correct?
So in this original study, we asked like certain types of questions, but I'm still continuing research, and so are the other teams. So we're doing different iterations of the same study, yeah.
And I would assume someone would have to be physically present in order to do this, obviously. But I mean, is there other studies that could involve sort of someone remote?
Yeah. So one thing that we've been working on since the pandemic is we actually have an app that we have turned our like experiment and the way that we induce lucid dreams. We've put it on an app so that people can try it at home. And it's not quite the same as a sleep study. We can't tell when you're in REM sleep, but for people who have Androids, they could try our app.
Awesome. And what's the name of the app so that people can download it?
It is the information for it is called, it's at parallorlab.psych.northwestern.edu/dream.
There you go. So maybe send me the link later, Karen, and We'll post it on the Facebook group. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
That's something that, you know what, I mean, lucid dreaming has been something that's really been something on my mind for a long time. I mean, I got over my fear of flying through a lucid dream, and I don't dream. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. I'm sure I do dream, but I don't normally remember my dreams. And this one dream, this was back when I was like maybe 10 years old. And this is when like, I was terrified of flying. And when I had this dream, I actually felt the sensation of flying, and that's how I got rid of that fear. So ever since then, I've always had this sort of intrigue about, or, you know, that sort of mystery around the lucid dreaming that I've always wanted to learn more about it. And it's kind of hard to find people who take it seriously unless you go the route as you're doing. But I mean, anybody will try to say, oh, we know about dreaming and all this stuff. And it's almost like, yeah, okay, you know. So, and this is why one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is to discuss this a little bit more and see pick your brain, so to speak, right?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of people interested in dreaming, and people come at it from a lot of different angles. So, yeah.
So is your study your interest, let's say, in dreaming, strictly scientific, or is there more to it?
Well, I mean, I think probably all the dream researchers I know, nobody's like, oh, I'm just really like, everybody's like loves dreams. And then they're like, okay, how can I make this my job somehow? Yeah. So, I started lucid dreaming and loving lucid dreaming. And then I was like, okay, somehow I'm going to make this into my job. And then that's how I ended up here.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So, like, try to for the listeners who may not know. Okay, you have lucid dreaming, and then you have astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
What's the differences?
Right. So lucid. So I guess you could think of them like experientially. They might be similar. You know, you're. It's like you're leaving your body. So one kind of critical difference as the way it was explained to me is like in astral projection, you're assumed to be going into another like realm or in this realm really. So like if somebody's actually projecting into like an ethereal realm that we don't know anything about, you can't really say whether that's actually happening or not. But some people say they're astral projecting like around their house or like around their neighborhood or somewhere in the real world. And people have tried to like scientifically verify that. They've tried to do experiments where they say, you know, what's going on. And none of those experiments have like proven that astral projection is like real yet in the same way that they have with lucid dreaming. And so that's kind of one distinction, is that lucid dreaming has been scientifically verified and astral projection hasn't. Now, I'm not saying that it couldn't. I just think that the experiments they haven't, whatever reason, those haven't worked yet with the people that were on them and stuff. So that.
So I mean, basically, it's theory. Astral projection.
Yeah, I think so. And I've never personally done it myself. So there could also be anecdotal reports of people who verified it in real life. But yeah, it's kind of like, I think it's the concept that you're actually leaving your body and projecting somewhere else. Whereas dreams generally are thought to occur in your hallucinating brain while you're asleep, although who knows?
So let me ask you this regarding back to the dream I had about flying. So one could argue that was probably astral projection because I wasn't in an area that was familiar to me at all. Like the house in this dream that I knew to be mine in the dream was not actually my house, and it was situated on top of a hill. And right after the house was a just sheer drop. So what happened was, as I was running towards the house, I tripped on a rock and I started falling forward, but I didn't hit the ground. I started floating. And then I floated past the cliff and I flew down, and I could feel that same sensation that you do when you go on a roller coaster in that first hill. The stomach comes up in your mouth or throat, and that's how I felt. And then I just started to level off and I could fly and I could feel it. So I know lucid dreaming, if someone's experienced enough, and I've talked to other people who lucid dream on a fairly regular basis, if you know, you're aware you're lucid dreaming, you can control it. I couldn't explain this because it wasn't really, it felt real because I could feel the sensation of flying. So I couldn't tell you whether it was a lucid dream or an astral projection. So is there a way of determining which is which, do you think?
I actually don't really know. Like if you told me that, I would think it was lucid dream. Maybe it's just because I study lucid dreams. It sounds like it was a dream, but I guess if you were really into astral projection, you might be more like, I was astral projecting around this area that I knew. I gained some information about something, and then I brought it back, and I wouldn't have known that otherwise if I hadn't done that. And then you can like verify that in the real world, I guess. But I'm not an expert on astral projection, so somebody else might have a different opinion.
Okay. All right.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to tell you about my dream.
His weird dream last night.
It's beyond weird.
Okay.
I've never had anything like this before, at least that I can remember. This I can remember. It was so vivid, so realistic. The dream just basically started, or at least what I remember it starting with, or the main part, the meat of it all, is I was in this hollowed out mansion, this huge old mansion. I've never seen it before, never been to it in any of my dreams before. And there was somebody else who I could not tell you who he was. I could not tell you. But him and I were trying an experiment with our minds. where we were trying to tap into, I don't know, another realm, whatever, but we were successful. We came back to the hollowed out mansion and tried it one more time. And when I woke up, I felt physically and mentally drained. Both, just physically and mentally drained. I had not slept at all. And in the dream, it felt like the moment when we were doing the mind thing, whatever. It felt like something was being downloaded or uploaded from me or to me. How does that seem to you?
Wow. And so
exactly.
the guy in the dream that you were doing that with, was he with you physically?
In the dream physically, yeah. He was there in the room with me, yeah. But I could not tell you who he was.
And then when you did the mind thing, it felt like just something like
I can't remember entirely like the details of what we were trying to do, other that we were trying to do something with our minds, and we were both able to do it. Where we went or what we did, I can't entirely remember, other that it was just entirely insane.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, it totally wiped me out.
Yeah.
So when I did wake up, like when I physically, woke up, I was physically and mentally drained. Like it was like, okay, I don't want to fall back asleep because something might happen, sort of thing,
Yeah.
It was really weird.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
Have you ever had a dream like that before?
I've never had a dream like that before.
Damn.
I've had vivid dreams before, but nothing like that. Never.
Do you notice anything? Has anything been uploaded or downloaded?
No, but I have a strange mark on my neck. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't feel any different or anything like that physically or mentally that I have noticed.
You said you
did
felt drained
eventually-
though, right?
Huh?
You felt physically drained in the real world, or just
In the real world, I felt
Okay.
physically drained and mentally drained. And like I said, I was afraid to fall back asleep, in fear that something might happen. But I mean, I eventually fell back asleep, and I woke back up, later on, obviously after getting more sleep. I felt fine. But at that moment when I woke up, I literally felt mentally and physically drained.
Do you remember how you felt in the dream before you woke up?
I think I felt ecstatic at the fact that what we were trying to do, we were able to do.
Yeah.
And I think that the mental and physical drain that I felt might have been a part of what was happening in the dream, in terms of what was being like uploaded or downloaded to me or linked to me or whatever. I mean, Alex said, "Oh, succubus." No, I think it was something greater than that. I mean, something just entirely on a much larger scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like sometimes people have like spiritual experiences or something like that, and it uses a lot of your brain power, like a really impactful dream like that might just be like really activating for your brain or something. And then
we should have had Steve hooked up to a brain machine.
I know. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see that. Yeah.
I don't know. I might have malfunctioned.
Yeah. What? It's actually registering. Wow.
Have you ever heard of anything like that? Like a dream similar to that, or anything like that? Intensity?
I mean, I've heard of different people with intense dreams, but I never heard of anything like that. That's really amazing.
Yeah, it was really weird. And like you said, I've had intense, vivid dreams, but yeah, not waking up and feeling physically drained and mentally drained. Yeah.
Yeah. It's especially unusual because it's not necessarily congruent with what's going on in the dream. Like sometimes if you have a bad dream, you wake up and you're in a bad mood, like the mood can carry over, but it sounded like you weren't necessarily feeling exactly like that in the dream. And then when you woke up, then you were like, whoa.
Exactly. Like I've had for instance, voices or screaming or something carry over into my consciousness
Yeah.
from the dream. Have you ever
Yeah.
had that?
I've had it when I'm falling asleep, that it'll
Oh yeah.
start as I'm falling asleep before asleep. Yeah.
Like I remember one time waking up and abruptly thinking that my sister-in-law was staying with us one time, and I thought I had heard her scream, and it just turned out that a scream from my dream just carried over, and I
Yeah.
thought it was realistic, but
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Yeah. It's called a hypnopampic hallucination.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh,
Does
okay.
that happen like as you're waking up from a dream, or can it happen before you fall asleep?
Right. So if you're falling asleep, it's called hypnagogic. That's a word
Okay.
people may have a little bit more. But then they also happen when you're waking up. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how it blurs together. And it's also interesting to see the brain waves. You're like, whoa, like people aren't, there's sleep stages, and people are like, okay, someone's awake, someone's asleep. And it doesn't really work like that. It's kind of like things get blurry. It's kind of interesting.
So what do you ultimately think about dreams and in terms dreaming and lucid dreaming? Do you think we have this ability to actually patch in somewhere else, or is it just our brain in overdrive, just collecting thoughts and memories and stuff like that, and patching it together and forming a scenario? Or what do you think?
So scientifically, there's a lot of ideas about what dreaming is. One is that it's random activity from your brainstem, and the rest of your brain interprets it. And they're like, oh, therefore it's meaningless, which I don't even think that's necessarily true. I think if your brain's interpreting something random, it's like a Rorschach test. It could still be meaningful. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's a great question. I mean, so scientifically, there's the answer about the different theories of what dreaming could be doing. And I personally kind of think that both things can happen. So like, mm-hmm. I think that like people get a lot of information during the day, they get new memories, and like they might, they have to integrate those new memories. I think they might be like updating their like world model or exploring new possibilities, and kind of like I think it helps your brain to dream, and like you might need to do that in order to just integrate new information and stuff like that. But I also think that doesn't necessarily explain all dreams, like maybe like the one you had last night. I mean, if you went to bed and you had just watched a movie about that, then like maybe it would explain it, right? I don't think there's any definitive answer for a given dream necessarily, whether it's a brain dream or like a dream that touches something more. But I kind of do think that like, like at the core of things, like everything we see is just made up from your brain, right? It's just like you can only perceive the world through your sensory organs, and really it's not any of those things. It's energy and waves. And so I think that there is more, and maybe dreams are a good place to touch it because you're not as distracted by like the sensory organs.
I find it very interesting that you're saying energy and frequency, because I mean those are very important when it comes to the human body and of course the surrounding environment. Because I mean, let's face it, we're made up of both.
Yeah. And
I mean, we emit energy and we emit frequency, and it interacts with the surrounding environment. We have a question, by the way. Kevin's got a question. Has Karen ever tried to direct or induce a lucid dream where the dreamer was having a bad dream or a nightmare? Would that be a part of the therapeutic aspect?
Oh, interesting. So you would have a lucid dream and you would intentionally make it bad in order to deal with it? Is that what he was asking?
I kind of assume that's what it sounds like it. Yeah.
That's interesting. I personally I actually haven't even heard of that. I don't think I've even heard of a story of anybody trying to do that. The stories I've heard are like, oh, I'm in a bad dream, I become lucid, and I use the lucidity to transform the dream. But it would be interesting if you had a repetitive dream, became lucid in another dream, and then asked for that whatever sea monster you always see to come back so you could deal with it. I've never heard of that, but I bet you would get interesting results. It's a cool idea.
That is.
Something you might want to try doing, I guess.
Yeah, I'm feeling really brave.
We'll use Kevin as a guinea pig.
Yeah.
Kevin is a bad dream.
Yeah.
Poor Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
So we can make fun of him.
Yeah.
Steve, maybe you should download that app and become a guinea pig
Test
yourself.
subject, a
Yeah.
guinea pig. Always, and yeah, for sure.
I mean,
I
I don't remember enough of my dreams to be able to be a viable candidate. If I remember something, it'll be a miracle. But there you go. Here's a question then, Karen.
Okay.
Is there any way to? Because I hear a lot of different and similar things about trying to remember dreams. I know everybody, the majority of the population dreams, but a good chunk of the population don't remember their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that you know that works well to be able to help remember dreams? If it's in the case like myself that, I wake up and I just don't remember anything.
Yeah. So the technique that most people would use, because you can increase your dream recall, is just to keep a dream journal. And so even if you think that you don't wake up and remember anything, if you every time you wake up, if you write down in your dream journal, oh, I don't remember anything, and then the next night when you're going to sleep, think about I'm going to remember my dream. The next day maybe you still don't remember, but usually after a little while people start remembering, and they'll remember a little bit. And a lot of times you forget your dreams so quickly. If a lot of times it's a horrible thing for dream enthusiasts that you'll have a dream at 3 a.m. and you'll be like, that was the most amazing dream ever. I'm never going to forget that dream. And then you wake up and it's totally gone. Or you would just forget that you even had a dream, after 2 minutes. So one thing that I find helpful also is not to use an alarm clock, because if you wake up naturally, you wake up out of REM sleep more often, and so you might be closer to your dreams. And also another thing that I find really helpful is sleeping with my phone on airplane mode, so that way I wake up, I don't get inundated with information right away. I can write down my dream first, and that helps me a lot. So
yeah,
I think we're going to take a short break here.
Awesome.
And when we come back, we'll talk about this and more. Interesting stuff. Thank you again for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, you're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live on the New Visions Radio Network, and of course, live streaming on our YouTube channel. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. like a scream.
I think if you're prepared and you don't have to.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live on the New Visions Radio Network. I paused because I'm so used to saying exclusively.
And you didn't.
On the New Visions, and I didn't. No, that's why I
You're
paused.
getting better. You're getting better.
And of course, simulcasting live to our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been to the YouTube channel, go over to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe it, and keep up to date with all the upcoming shows, and of course, past archives and past live shows, and of course, keep up to date with the documentary that's coming at the Dark Woodlot.
That's right. And also, for those of you who don't know, Steve now has about 116 of our old archive BTR days shows that you're going to be slowly uploading to YouTube.
I've been picking through them and just listening to them. It's been a while since I've heard a lot of them.
Oh, I know.
It's
kind of scary when you think back, all those years.
It is. You sit there and go, oh my God, we actually broadcasted that? Oh.
Just so you know, Karen, we've been on the air for like 13 years, right? So we have a lot of archives to go through.
And some of the guests that we've had on the show,
both Steve and I had dark hair when we started broadcasting.
Dark. And now Alex did have hair on the top of his head.
Yeah, it just went on vacation.
That's just headphone.
Yeah. In case you didn't tune in before the break there, we have Karen with us, and we're talking about
Lucid Dreaming.
What are we talking about? Lucid Dreaming.
Lucid Dreaming, and the study that she was involved in to try to communicate with Lucid Dreaming, to see if we can establish communication with Lucid Dreaming, and to see, obviously the purpose is to be able to, and let's see if I got this correct, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically the end game is to try to see if you can be able to help people who have, for example, PTSD and other, fears. You could also even go to that route as well, like unexplainable fears. Maybe you might be able to assist people with that kind of scenario as well, right?
Yeah, I think that's one end game, like an applied one. And I think I didn't say it quite before, but I think the overall end game will be to like understand dreaming better and like what are dreams for. That's another one.
So this is a segue to the question that I thought of when I went to the washroom, as Steve put it. Dream interpretation books. What's your take on them? And do you put any stock in them?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I go to this dream conference, and not everybody there is a scientist. There's a lot of like dream workers, but a kind of common rule that it often boils down to at the dream conference is you have to really be careful about interpreting somebody else's dream, because like you could read a dream interpretation book and there could be an alien in your dream, and that means this, that, and the other, but like maybe you have like a really unusual relationship with aliens, right? And that isn't true for you. Like, so I understand like where a dream interpretation book could come from. There are some like cultural archetypes and stuff like that like mean similar things to similar people, and like there are common dream themes too that are kind of weird, like your teeth falling out and stuff like that. But I do think that dream interpretation, like I don't think it's futile to try to figure out what your dreams mean. There's a lot of like dream discussions, you know, like Steve could have a crazy dream, and then there's things where people will talk about it for 45 minutes and they'll ask him all sorts of questions and he'll free associate. And like, I think that a dreamer could have a moment where they're like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what that dream is about. But I don't think that somebody else can necessarily do that for the dreamer because it's so individual, you know, and somebody else would have different associations. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like almost like the example that I like to use that you know, two individuals could be facing a similar problem, but they handle it totally different.
Right.
Right. And it affects them totally different.
Right.
Right. So I guess dreams or dream interpretation books, I guess it's more of a blanket sort of explanation, and it's almost like astrology, for example. Like you're a Pisces or you're a Taurus, and maybe generally you might have similar traits or the traits that it's espoused in astrology, but it doesn't mean that this is exactly you, kind of deal, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel. Right, exactly. I think that, dream interpretation could reflect aspects of a culture, but doesn't necessarily capture an individual's experiences. And astrology could possibly capture general trends or something, but it isn't necessarily going to be very predictive at an individual level.
Of course, it's a generalization, but it's like with anything else. I mean, even people tend to generalize cultures in general, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, it doesn't apply to every individual. Like everybody seems to, I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people seem to think that Italians are all mobsters, but that's not true. I'm not a mobster.
That we know of.
Well, hey, if I told you, I'd have to kill you, right? So it's one of those scenarios.
I haven't even read a lot of dream interpretation books, so I don't even know exactly where they get all their interpretations. But even if the author had all of those dreams and knew definitively that all of her dreams were those in the book, doesn't necessarily mean that that'd be true for anybody else.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that those books come to be honest with you, because you're right. I mean, how can you possibly know unless you experience it yourself and associate it or are able to associate it with something that happens? You know, so it's weird.
So I was at this lucid dreaming workshop, and like the facilitator of the workshop was asking people like in their next lucid dream, like go in their dream and hug somebody, and you'll like integrate with them and have this amazing, beautiful moment with butterflies and rainbows, and it'll be like so amazing. And so my next lucid dream, I found this like creepy robot thing. So I like tried to hug it, and it was like so awkward, and it just like wilted. And like I was reflecting on it afterwards, and I was like, when I was in kindergarten, there was this hugging song, and you had to go around and hug 4 people. And I did not like to do that song because I thought it was weird. And I got bad grades in kindergarten for not participating in the hugging song. So maybe hugging something in my dream was not the best, most unifying, amazing way of like uniting with that robot thing. And so there's just an example of where for him, he could think hugging is this amazing, you know, universal sign of whatever. And to me, it actually wasn't that. So.
Have you had any dreams where you've had a sign or premonition, something that has come to fruition?
I had a period like in the spring where I had weird dreams that like kind of related to things that were going to happen in my college friends group chat. Like I had a dream that my friend got a new job, and then like 2 weeks later she wrote that she got a new job, and it was kind of weird because I didn't normally have dreams about her, and I didn't know that she was applying for a job. But other people have way better examples of that. I haven't had like all that many. Something else happened, and another one was I had a dream. Another friend I was hanging out with her in Chicago where I live, and she doesn't live anywhere near there, but I just had a dream that she had moved there. And then like 2 weeks later, she said that her boyfriend started going to school there and she was going to be visiting all the time. And we actually did hang out. So that 1 week I was like, maybe my dreams tell the future, but I those aren't the most compelling examples I can think of. But other people have cool examples. So I don't know.
You know, I was thinking, and is there a condition or something where a person can't decipher if they've left their dream or not? if they're still dreaming when realistically they're not?
Yeah. So I don't know if that is a specific condition, but it is kind of a thing that can happen, like dream reality confusion.
Yeah.
And like, it's one reason why some people think like if you are, have psychotic tendencies or something like that, maybe you like shouldn't try lucid dreaming because it can blur those boundaries. But yeah. And then it's kind of confounded, like hypnopampic hallucination. Sometimes dreams kind of do continue afterwards, but I could see that, that's kind of like the plot of Inception, right? Mm-hmm. So I had that one time I was supposed to give a talk on lucid dreaming when I was an undergrad, and I had this bracelet, and I was supposed to use the bracelet as my reality check, right? Because if you have a reality check, you can kind of use that to perhaps avoid those situations, right? You like, the one I was using was you read something twice, and I was like, I'll always wear this bracelet, so I know if I'm not wearing it, I'm dreaming. So I wake up the morning of the talk, look at my wrist, I'm not wearing the bracelet, and so I'm like, oh, I'm clearly dreaming. So I go around my room, I start reading things. I'm like, everything feels really real, but like I must be having an anxiety dream because I lost the bracelet and I was supposed to reference it in the talk. And then I'm like, half an hour I spend like trying to be like, oh, I'm dreaming. And I just couldn't find any other signs that I was dreaming. So I decided to go to the gym just in case I was awake. And I was running to the gym down this big hill. And in the other direction, I pass this guy that I had seen the night before, and he's running, and his wrist comes up to my face, and he is wearing the bracelet that I lost. And I'm like, this is still clearly a dream. I just coincidentally ran into him. Like, I started chasing him in the other direction. I was thinking, like, chasing, such a typical dream scenario. I'm chasing him, screaming, he can't hear me because he's wearing headphones. And then finally, I got up to him, gave me the bracelet back, and it indeed did not change. I was totally awake, but for a good 45 minutes, I did think that I was dreaming. So I don't know if that's ever happened to you guys.
I don't think I've ever had that before, but wow, that's like I said, the only thing that is like I said, I've had some voices or screaming or whatever sort of come out of it briefly, and then making you think, okay, what's going on, and essentially nothing's going on. It was in the dream. But your conscious mind hasn't figured it out yet. But yeah, no, not to that extent. No, not at all.
Not with me. No, because I don't remember any of my dreams, unfortunately. Actually, you know what? I had this one experience, and I know I've said it on the show multiple times. Steve's is aware of it. When the night my father passed away, and we knew he was passing away. He had terminal cancer, but we just didn't know the exact time and date he would pass away. But the night that he did pass away, before he passed away, I went to go see him at the hospital, and his kidneys had failed already, so we knew it was going to be any day now. And I went to go see him, and I was like, okay. I went after seeing him in and out of sort of I wouldn't say consciousness, because he was conscious, but he was so doped up on morphine that he wasn't there all the time. After that, I went down to the chapel, and I just said, you know what, and I'm not even really that religious, but I went down anyway, and I said, you know what, just take him. I'd rather him go rather than see him suffer. So after that, I went back up to him, I said my goodbye, and then I went home. And I couldn't fall asleep, obviously, for obvious reasons. So I kept tossing and turning, and I kept looking at the clock. And around 2:30 in the morning is when I finally started getting into that half in and out of sleep state. And I had sort of like, I guess you can call it a dream or a vision or whatever you want to call it. But it was sort of like a grayish, foggy background. And then I see my dad smiling and waving, and then he disappeared. And shortly after he disappeared, the phone rang, and it was my sister who was at the hospital, basically telling me that he had passed. So it happened like at the same time that he passed away. So I have a hard time saying, I mean, I know a lot of people have told me, just in general, because there's a lot of skeptical people out there, obviously, that, you knew he was dying, and your mind was sort of preparing yourself for that inevitability. But the timing of it was what really got me, because even though I knew he was dying, I didn't know he was going to die that night.
Yeah.
It was a question of, okay, so it's any day now, sure, because his kidneys, his organs are starting to fail, so it's obviously going to be any day now. I just didn't know it was going to be that very night. So this is where it gets me, because it's like, okay, how is it that I have this experience that same time, not just the same night, but the same time frame that he passed away? And that's kind of a weird thing. I don't even know if I can call that a dream or not, because I wasn't fully asleep.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
Have you encountered other people like that? Like, I'm sure other people have come to you with that sort of scenario.
Yeah, I think like visitation dreams like that, especially of people who are dying. I've heard of a bunch of different stories like that. And I feel like, if nothing like that has ever happened to you, then it's, you can, explain it with, the explanation that people gave you, which is that and it was just a coincidence. But once it happens to you, you're like, how could this possibly be a coincidence, right? So like you probably could theoretically study that and, have people write that down like before they get the phone call or something like that. I don't know. But I mean, I feel like there are those experiences that can touch something else. And, especially it happens a lot when people are dying. So yeah, it's crazy.
It was just the timing of everything that really got me. It's like, because much like Steve, although we're both, into the paranormal and we try to research the paranormal, it doesn't mean that we believe everything is paranormal.
Right.
We try to keep a sort of sane mentality about it, and a skeptical mentality about it. So when I hear other people explain stories such as this, or even like paranormal stories in general, I'll hear them out. We'll both hear them out. But it's one of those things that's like, okay, well, this kind of sounds like isn't paranormal. Maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And this is how I try to live my own life as well. When I don't try to, make everything into something that's paranormal. When I hear weird noises, I try to rationalize it first before I even go that route. And even with the this instance of the night my father passed away, I have racked my brain trying to think of why this happened. I get people's points saying you knew he was dying, and it's true. I knew he was dying. It was inevitable. Doctors didn't make any qualms about it. It's just the timing of it that really kind of is a sticking point for me, just because I could have had this dream at any point, because he was in the hospital he was hospitalized for 3 weeks before he passed away. I could have had it at any point, because we knew he was dying at any point. Right, as soon as he was hospitalized, as soon as he was diagnosed a few months before he was hospitalized, and we knew then that he was dying. So I could have had that dream at any point until he died, but I had it that very night at that very time.
Right.
But just before that happened, Alex.
Yeah.
Just before you had that dream,
Mm-hmm.
you said that you went in and sort of had a chat with the higher being, saying, take him now because I don't want to see him suffer any longer.
Oh yeah, and I thought about that as well.
And of course that's in your that's your mindset now. Now you said your goodbye.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't mean that I knew he was dying that night.
No,
I just didn't want him to suffer.
But you made your mind.
Of course,
you said look, I don't want to see him suffer anymore.
So in other words, it's either this is a freaky incident or I'm psychic.
Oh man, don't say you're psychic.
Because I went to the chapel and said, okay, you know what? I know he's going to die tonight, so please take him away. Right?
I think it brings up kind of interesting thing about dreams and like paranormal stuff. And like, so for instance, in pertaining to like telling the future in a dream, it's kind of like, one non-paranormal explanation is that like your consciousness is the tip of the iceberg, and like your brain has so much more information than you think it does, even from a non-paranormal standpoint, right? So like sometimes when dreams tell the future and stuff, well, like dreams are probably meant in part to explore what might happen in the future, and you're picking up so many subconscious cues that you don't get, like for instance, like not only did you go to the chapel and give him up, but also like you could see his condition deteriorate day by day, etc. And so I feel like the fact that it happened on that night could be explained, in a normal way by maybe non-paranormal stuff. But the specific time, I feel like there's not really like a clear subconscious algorithm that would have led to that. And I also feel like all the stories I've heard, maybe I just don't hear the ones that aren't good coincidences, but all the stories I've heard line up with actual people passing. You know what I mean? People don't have those dreams like a week before.
Well, let me ask you, Alex, how did you feel after you had that dream?
Well, I was interrupted by the phone call, right? So,
okay,
it was one of those scenarios. Sorry, go ahead.
How did you feel though when you dreamt that?
I felt
moment where your father appeared, and
so when I saw my dad waving and smiling at me, I sort of felt, I guess I hate this. It's kind of a corny saying, but at peace, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's like
it's corny. It's just
it is corny, but at the same time, it is true because what made me feel sort of at peace, I guess, for lack of a better term, is that he was smiling when he waved. So I knew that he was in a better place at that instant. But as soon as he disappeared, the phone rang, and then at that point, like it was my sister, and she was crying, and she didn't even have to say anything, obviously, because she was crying, and I knew already what was going on, but also because, I mean, you could argue that okay, she was crying because maybe my dad took a turn for the worse, for example, right? But when you could argue that if you really want to, but I because I had that sort of dream / vision, whatever you want to call it. And the timing of it, and then her calling right after my dad disappeared, and then she was crying. I knew she didn't have to say anything. I knew he passed away. And at that point, I didn't even contemplate what my feelings were. I was more concerned about, waking my mom, my brother, and, my brother from Italy and my sister from Italy were scheduled to come in that day. Right. So they didn't even get a chance to see my father before he passed away because he passed overnight and they were scheduled to come in the evening. So it was one of those things where, your brain's like racking. Okay, so I got to wake everybody up. I got to make sure everybody gets ready to go to the hospital. I got to break the news to them basically that my dad had passed away and all that. So I didn't have time to reflect on my emotions at the time because obviously some new emotions were coming into play. Right.
Yeah.
But during the experience itself, I felt sort of like at peace because knowing that he seems to be happy now. He's not suffering anymore. He's moved on. Right. So that's the only thing I can say. And I don't want to ever have another dream like that, by the way.
No, I don't think anybody does. I mean, if anything you can take out of it is a sense of peace and he is safe and okay. I
mean, I've had, but when, even like when my mom passed away, I didn't have that came out of the blue. I wasn't expecting that at all. Right. I mean, we knew she wasn't well. She had Alzheimer's, unfortunately. So, but it wasn't a scenario like my dad where he had terminal cancer. We knew that she wasn't going to be around for decades. She was already in her 70s, late 70s, right? So, but when the call came from the nursing home, it was a shock because it's like we had her at our house to celebrate her 77th birthday, not even a week before she passed. It was actually days before she passed. Like she passed, her birthday was April 6th, so that's coming up. She passed on the 14th of April, so it was literally just over a week before her 77th birthday. And both my parents, ironically enough, died at the age of 77. My dad, because they were 10 years apart, my dad died, he would have been 78 that year he died in June, but he died obviously in February, which was 77 still. And my mom just turned 77 when she passed.
Wow.
Yeah. So I can look forward to, kicking the bucket at 77.
It's so optimistic.
Yeah, so optimistic, right?
I don't know. 77 is not a bad age.
It's not a bad age. I think it's a prime age. You're like at that age where it's like, okay, I'm done with this world. Let me go.
Oh, God.
But on a lighter note, let's talk about dreams again.
I thought that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
was thinking the sense of peace is kind of interesting because, like, there's, one way that you could start studying this more scientifically is say, like, well, what characteristics does an informative dream have compared to like an ordinary dream? And like one thing that some people do report is like having some really strong feeling about it, in comparison to like, because you can have dreams that people died, right? I've had dreams that people died and they weren't dead. And sometimes those dreams, like sometimes the dreams that are meaningful have like a specific feeling about them. And maybe you could start to use that to separate it out. So there's this one dream researcher who recently reported on this lady who had heads up health dreams. So like they would take patients and they would have some obscure disease, and then they would go to this lady and she would take a nap and have like a very short dream about, this exact medical procedure that somebody, and she wouldn't even know what it meant. She'd be like, okay, they have to like go look at, this, and she'd describe it in this weird way. And those people, if they took it to a doctor, the doctor would be like, oh yeah, that's a colon test and you have to do that. And then they diagnose the disease. And he had like, 50 documented cases of this lady doing this. And it was interesting because he was a dream researcher. So he looked at like, okay, what's the difference between a medical heads up health dream and a regular dream? And they were like shorter and there was less extraneous details. And like, so it's kind of interesting. That's kind of one way that you might need to use to study that scientifically, is like a way to predict which dreams are telling the future, which dreams are visitation dreams, or which dreams are heads up health dreams compared to which are just like normal dreams.
That would be a great sort of research piece right there. I mean, I honestly don't think, I mean, you know what, I'm not, I'm no scientist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm far from. So there could be something going on that I'm not even aware of, but that would be something that definitely I think would be advantageous to research, just because of the possibilities. I mean, I hate to say this, but scientists were at one point very, very inquisitive, and we got to where we are today in the scientific community and in the world in general because of that inquisitiveness. But it seems like lately, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, because like I said, I'm nowhere near a scientist, obviously, but it seems like that sort of like slipped away. That sort of inquisitiveness, that wondrous inquisitiveness, slipped away, and it's more of what's here, the here and now, and the physical, rather than what could be.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of scientists, and like everybody's inquisitive in their own way about their own topic. But it's kind of interesting to see, as we know more and there's less like phenomenon that people consider mysterious. Like dreams are still considered kind of mysterious by scientists. It's not like great ways to put it, but like a lot of things aren't anymore, even though they might still be, right? And so like it's easy to like explain away stuff, especially when there's so much that's been debunked and so much information. But I think that a lot of scientists still are inquisitive, but there's so much, you have to stay in a certain box sometimes in order to keep, on the track that you, whatever, might have expected to go on or something.
Well, question, like how, for instance, how important is, say, something like the pineal gland when it comes to sleep
now we're getting down and
dreaming
dirty.
Or anything? No, seriously.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's an important gland. Like it emits a lot of stuff. I don't remember everything about the pineal gland. I know that it has a reputation in the esoteric world, and it has a completely unrelated scientific explanation.
Well, it's considered by many in the esoteric world to be the third eye.
I know it doesn't it have an important link to to REM sleep.
It produces a lot of serotonin.
Well, I know melatonin and serotonin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So melatonin and they're important for sleep regulation in general. I'm still reading all my biology of REM sleep, but it would be interesting to look at pineal gland.
I know they have classified it as and you hear this all the time, a third eye, but an eye without a lens, more or less. I forget the terminology, but it's considered an eye without a lens. So essentially, it's not a seeing eye as we would know an eye to be, but it's considered an eye without a lens. I forget the terminology or something behind that.
So I'd be curious to say, why do people think that, right? Like, what is the reasoning to think that the pineal gland is that?
Well, it has something to do with the organ itself, the gland itself. Something to do it probably through evolution that maybe when you look at some other insects and animals that might have, well, most likely insects that have three particular eyes, if you will, like for instance, spiders and ants, type of ants, and so on and so on, that perhaps we might have at one point should have, but it never developed into that.
Well, I don't think that your pineal gland is particularly anywhere near where that third eye is supposed to be.
No, but it's in the center, right? It's in the center. Right. It's right in the groove where the two halves of the brains meet. I forget the terminology with that now.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why I even brought that up. I just it's something something to do with REM sleep.
It's an interesting connection because I had to dissect a brain for neuroanatomy, and they discussed it a little bit. And yes, the pineal gland is like kind of. So the explanation that they gave was just that when people started opening up brains, the pineal gland looked important because it was in the middle and it looks like a kind of like a pine cone or something, and like a lot of stuff looks like that. But it actually is very small, and there's like lots of stuff that connects to brain. And I don't know, it's interesting to think about what kind of information, like really experienced contemplative people might be able to gain about their brain that like we don't have. But I do think now it's kind of interesting that the frontal pole of your brain is quite a bit closer to where your actual third eye should be, and that area becomes active when you're lucid dreaming. So just saying.
So what do you think scientifically? What do you think? Do you think there is so much more to the brain that we just like? What do you think capacity wise?
Well, I don't really think that so a lot of the brain, the region wise, a lot of it's been kind of figured out roughly what each region does, but I think that there's still so much we don't know. Like we don't really know how the brain produces like conscious experience like at all. There's like some theories, but like it's not, I don't know. I don't think, there's so much more to be learned. And capacity wise, I mean, it's kind of interesting to think about even what kind of capacity, you would want, right? Like you can have all this information capacity that you can get from your brain via technology, but like, is that even good for your brain?
Well, I mean, you look at Elon Musk and his endeavors into patching, pretty much connecting us to the cyber world.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. Well, okay. So my understanding of the Neuralink stuff, which is not high, is that like if you can help people who have like, brain lesions or strokes or Parkinson's or something, like amazing, like definitely do that. But that's a little bit different than giving your brain information from the internet. So like, for instance, if you have a stroke, maybe your motor cortex doesn't work, but you know exactly where that is. You know exactly what it needs to do mostly, so you put some fake brain in there and it replaces what was already there. But when you're receiving complex information, like you are going to need your frontal cortex in order to like think about it, and you're going to need your visual cortex in order to like picture it, and your motor. Like there's so many different brain parts involved in just one experience that I'm a little bit confused about how you jump from Parkinson's to like actually getting a complex experience via Neuralink. And also like I feel like I'm slightly full of the whole technology thing anyway. I don't really know if that's, I don't know. I don't know if I would want one in my brain right away.
I'm with you. I don't think I wouldn't want anything.
I wouldn't want people to know what I'm thinking about when I'm by myself. That could be dangerous.
Oh God. Okay, we're going to take a short break here. When we come back, more with Karen. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live. See, I was going to say exclusively.
Yep.
Live on the New Visions Radio Network, and of course, simulcasting on our YouTube channel. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio.
Page, and you're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Enjoy.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be around this wild, wacky, and sometimes disturbing world of ours. Yes, that's the intro to the Mindset Podcast, a weekly attempt to open eyes and shedding light on what's really going on in the world, all done by ripping apart the media madness that masquerades as news. Join me, Gareth Davis, every Sunday on the Mindset Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting services such as iTunes, Stitcher, and so on. Or you can go directly to the main Mindset website. That's www.mindsetcentral.com. Check out the Mindset Podcast. Bring your curiosity, your opinions, and a sense of humor. And remember that some worldviews are stranger than others.
out. You hear that? Guys, over here. Again, that wailing noise. Look, what's that? What's that? There's something fucking moving over there. You see that? You saw that, right? It was fucking white.
This is Keith Page, and you're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Enjoy.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be around this wild, wacky, and sometimes disturbing world of ours. Yes, that's the intro to the Mindset Podcast, a weekly attempt to open eyes and shedding light on what's really going on in the world, all done by ripping apart the media madness that masquerades as news. Join me, Gareth Davis, every Sunday on the Mindset Podcast. You can find the show on all...
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live on the New Visions Radio Network. And of course, streaming live on our YouTube channel. If you're just tuning in, we've been talking about lucid dreaming and dreams and I guess... all kinds of funky stuff when it comes to that sort of realm. And Karen, who was a part of a study at Northwestern, right? University. So how long was the study that you were a part of?
Yeah, so I got there, and so my advisor had actually thought of the idea for this study 5 years before I got there, but they hadn't succeeded in getting anybody to communicate. And so I came and we switched a bunch of stuff up, and nobody had really like focused on it as like their full-time job until I got there. And so then we ran a bunch of subjects and we collected all the data within a year, but then we collaborated with three other labs from other countries. And so it took a while to put the whole paper together and combine everybody's data and figure out how to do all that stuff. So it ended up taking 3 years before it got published. Yeah.
Well, this kind of stuff usually does take a long time to do because it's not something it can be done overnight, obviously, right?
Yeah, I've been so happy since I've been doing it that I got into research and not like journalism because deadlines are way farther apart.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So where do you ultimately the advancements that science is making when it comes to dreaming and that sort of realm, where does its place? Where will it be in terms of? Are we talking about helping people who have illnesses, better themselves, health? What exactly do you see this sort of? How do you see it flourishing?
Yeah, so I think that somewhere it really kind of fits in and somewhere it's been studied a lot is in terms of there's a whole field of it's called memory consolidation, and it's how your memories get, organized in your brain and all that between when you acquire them and when you actually use them. And so there's been this like big boom of research in recent years about deep sleep. And that's usually when you have a lot less dreams. It's, more restorative, slow wave sleep. You have, you're more unconscious usually than rapid eye movement sleep when you're dreaming. And so there's all this studies coming out about how important deep sleep is for you, how it helps with your memory, it helps with your immune system, it helps with so much different stuff. And then what's actually going on in rapid eye movement sleep that happens afterwards, right? Throughout the night, you're always cycling. You go like light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. And REM sleep is still really mysterious. And so I think that a big place where it fits in is something to do with like integrating the new memories with old memories, but it's really hard to kind of prove how that's happening or kind of demonstrate in what ways that happens. And so I think it could even help healthy people, right? There's all sorts of information that you get and integrate poorly, or you can't integrate at all, or it's not good for you, right? I think that kind of like integrating your information gives you this model of the world with which you work. And there's all these new studies coming out about, at least in your visual system, you're not seeing things like they're not really there, right? It's really the way your visual system works is your brain predicts what's there and then it checks it based on your eye movements. And so it's all a big prediction. And I think personally that the rest of your brain might work that way too. And so what is your prediction for like what's happening in the world and how does that affect what you actually perceive? Like you might have predictions about yourself, like I am cool or something. So then when people see you, you're like, oh, they think I'm cool because that was already your prediction. And you take what information you can to get it confirmed. And so I think personally that REM sleep could have something to do with that, something to do with like, what's your overall world model and how is that developing as you like acquire new information over time?
Here's a loaded question. And it's made me, I've thought of this for many years. Your thoughts, of course, within, scientifically speaking, but I mean, I don't think we're quite there yet, but the thought that possibly, because you mentioned, frequency and energy before, the thought that we're actually patched into something, some sort of, if you will, a cyber sort of net, if you will, like how a PC is connected to the internet. And that, each one of us is sort of patched into some greater thing, perhaps.
Like the Akashic Records?
Sure. you know, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, is that a possibility?
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot that's not yet understood about consciousness and what's going on outside of what we can perceive with our sensory organs and stuff like that. And it's hard to say, like something I thought a lot about is it even good to try to prove that scientifically, right? I feel like maybe whatever you're patching into has a bigger perspective than I do. And like, should I even be the one that's saying like, this is something that we should study? Or is that something that the universe needs to like hand to you when it's ready? So, but yeah, it's an interesting question. I think there's kind of like, I'm not exactly sure how to think about it, but it's kind of interesting. Like one way you could think about it is like, there's the physical universe of energy and waves and stuff. And then there's what you can perceive, certain qualities that you can perceive. And then there's certain qualities that you can't perceive. Like we don't have sonar. We can't perceive electromagnetic fields the way that bees can. And so maybe it's some properties of the physical universe that are impacting us, that are affecting our dreams, maybe affecting our brains that we can't perceive. Or kind of possibly, I don't know, separate idea is like consciousness itself is kind of like ephemeral. It doesn't seem to actually exist in the physical world at all. Like it's some separate dimension or something, if you will. Yeah. And so like, it could be that just consciousness itself is patched into something that maybe isn't part of the physical universe. It's only part of like the consciousness universe. So like, I find that one way harder to think about how.
That is a loaded question.
It is, because I mean, when you think about it, it makes me often wonder, when you go to sleep, you're actually patching into that. The possibility of it. Maybe there's a certain state, like maybe the REM or rapid eye movement or whatever, some sort of state that you're in when you're sleeping, that you actually patch into that. I mean, like again, I'm no scientist, but it makes you often wonder.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the book "The Kin of Ada Are Waiting for You"?
It sounds familiar.
Right. It's a great book, and I might be applicable here because kind of like it's just a novel, but like I don't know. I felt like I learned so much about dreams from this fictional novel. Yeah. It's basically this guy who ends up in this civilization of people, and they feel like dreams are like reality, and this is all just a dream. And so the kind of goal of their whole secluded island society is to have as like enlightening dreams as possible, or like you could maybe think of it as like dreams that are patched into something else as much as possible. And what they kind of talk about is like what prevents you from doing that, right? So like if you're really hungry when you go to bed, you might just have dreams about being hungry, and then you wouldn't have that clarity to have a dream about another realm because you're just dreaming about being hungry. So then you just make sure that you like eat, the right amount. So that way you don't have that issue when you go to sleep. But then maybe you're really jealous of your, girlfriend or something. And so then what they try to do in the book is they deal with their jealousy during the day, because otherwise they'll have dreams about being jealous, and they won't have enlightening dreams because they'll be dealing with their social issues in their dreams. And so they kind of try to like process and integrate as much of these lower kinds of issues as possible so that their dreams are like free and clear to be like connected to something more. So I think that's kind of an interesting way to think about it. Like some dreams are biological things, and maybe some are more, and like which is which,
What was that name of that book again?
It's called The Kin of Ada, ATA, Are Waiting for You. It's my favorite book.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
He's gonna grab it for his Kindle.
Changed my life. Great book.
There you go. See? I gotta read something that was life changing for me too, because it's pretty boring life. I gotta have more dreams. I want to be able to remember my dream. I'm gonna try that. I know a lot of people have said the same thing you have, is that dream journal seems to be the standard answer.
Yeah.
So, but one question I wanted to ask you about REM sleep. Obviously, for a lot of people know this, and some people may not. REM stands for rapid eye movement.
Right.
Do lucid dreamers experience REM sleep? Is it mutually exclusive? So I know in your study, part of it was the questions were asked, and you were interpreting the answers by sort of like a more tightening clench of the eyelids or some other type of movement. But if a dreamer who's experiencing lucid dreaming has REM sleep, the eyes are kind of fluttering back and forth. So how can you determine whether they're answering your question or whether they're just part of the REM cycle?
Right. That's a great question. Yeah. So in our study, we only looked at periods where people were definitely in REM sleep. We got 3 different experts to say, yes, this is REM sleep. And we did that before we looked at any of the communication because, sometimes people could be in like more of a mixed state or something like that. So we only took like the most REM sleep examples. And then we did was, so when you're in rapid eye movement sleep, yes, your eyes move, but when you actually look at it, they're not moving they're not always moving. A lot of times they're still, and then you'll have like a burst of movement. And so those bursts of eye movements, it would be as though you're just looking around the room. And so when you look at the electrical activity, it's like, oh, here, there, around. But when they're in a lucid dream and they give us this signal, A, we know what it is in advance, so we can look for that pattern specifically. But B, it's really dramatic all the way to your left ear, right ear, left ear, right ear, really rapid and fast. And that it never happens unless like 1 in a million, right? Like because it's so regular and the movements are so extreme. There is like one example from early studies. Somebody was watching a ping pong game in their dream, and that looked like a bunch of left, right eye movements in succession. But usually it doesn't happen because you're looking all over the place and you're not just looking at your ears over and over again.
So you're looking for more of a pattern rather than a randomness. Randomness more indicative of just regular REM sleep, so to speak, and then when you see a pattern is when you sort of decipher that the person's answering a question.
Right. So the way we did it is each team would have a signal first to just say, I'm lucid, right? So we tell our dreamers, if you're lucid, look left, right twice. And then you can see that really clear 2 left eye movement on the EEG. And so then to ask a question. And so you might ask, for instance, what's 3 + 1, and then we ask them to give 1 left right eye movement for each number in their response. So now we just asked 3 + 1, and they look left right left right left right left right really distinctly. And so like what are the chances that they would give that four of those really distinct eye movements right after we asked 3 + 1? It's like that it never happened any other time. So and then also in addition they'll wake up and they'll tell us, yes, I just heard you ask a question, I just answered 4. And so there's a lot of different evidence pointing to the fact that it's not random eye movement. That's a great question.
So that's actually was going to be one of my other questions, was the fact that do they realize that they were being asked the questions while they were in their sleep?
Yeah. So in general, so I guess to say, our main source of evidence was, electrical signals that we got while they were sleeping. And then we kind of looked at dream reports as like an additional piece of evidence after they woke up. And so everybody remembered some part of the question. I can relook, but I'm pretty sure almost every dreamer at least remembered that they were doing some math problems. But interestingly, they forgot some of the details, right? So sometimes they forgot which math problems they were asked, or they even got it wrong. They were like, oh, I think I had a 3 in it. And like they didn't answer any math problems with a 3 in it. So it's it points to like a key reason why we wanted to do this study as well, because dream reports might be distorted or forgotten like yours, you forget your dreams. And so how can you really study something based on a report that we don't really know what parts of it are accurate and what parts of it aren't? But when you can get that in real time, you can like eliminate some of those issues.
Wow. That's too bad you live so far away, Karen. I'd want to be a part of the study. Maybe be a part of the study to see if you can get me to help me remember my dreams.
For great lucid dreamers near Chicago. So.
Yeah, there you go. I'm willing to go to Chicago. I went to Chicago once. Come on.
I had a couple once who came from Montreal, and the girlfriend set it up to have her boyfriend participate in my study as his Valentine's Day gift. I was like,
hey, there you go.
That's different.
Maybe I'll convince my wife to have that set up for my next birthday. Well, now I know who to go to, right?
One of my friends wants to have a lucid dreaming hotel. I'm like, I don't think
Yeah.
Lucid Dreaming Hotel.
Yep. And you know, we'll keep it straight and narrow there. You know, nothing weird going on in the lucid dreaming hotel. No funky dreaming.
So what aspect intrigues you the most about studying this, and what is the most intriguing aspect of lucid dreaming or dreaming in particular that really interests you the most?
Well, I think the reason that I got hooked was because in a lucid dream, you can like explore these parts of your mind. And in a way, even if you can, psychoanalyze yourself while you're awake and have some insight about your mind, when you're in a dream, you can experience it. So like that's what got me hooked, was like I could go in a lucid dream and say like, show me my subconscious, and be transported somewhere and have this whole experience about it. And so that's what initially got me interested. And plus just the idea of being able to do whatever you want. But then scientifically, it's like, I'm not currently studying that, but I think it's really interesting to think about, like, from the perspective of your brain, how can you have a perceptual experience of an abstract idea? Like, and that can be another, it can relate to dream interpretation, right? Like if you are losing control over your life, that's how you feel. And then you might have a dream about losing control over your car. Like how does an abstract feeling turn into a perceptual experience? I think that's a really interesting question in terms of brain connectivity stuff, blah, 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 but also just from an experiential perspective.
And of course, you always hear this, and what's the validity of it, if you die in your dream?
Yeah, I mean, I know that you don't die in real life always, because I've died in many dreams and I'm still here. But yeah, I think again, it's an individual thing. There could be a lot of different, things that people might get from that, depending on what death means to you. But yeah,
I mean, you hear it all the time. You hear about people. I'm afraid that I'm going to die in my dream. Then that's it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those.
It can be amazing dreams. Like sometimes you might wake up or something, but sometimes you can keep on going with the dream, and then that's kind of cool, because some people, a lot of lucid dreamers even practice dying. They're like, I'm going to use lucid dreaming to practice dying, so that when I actually die, I can consciously die.
So you're like a cat. You have 9 lives.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with people like falling and then they wake up before they hit the ground?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a common theme.
Yeah. The hypothesis I've heard about falling dreams, which I don't know if it applies, is that it makes sense to me if you have them while you're sitting up, right? So one idea is that you're falling because your head falls because you're sleeping, and then you your head jerks up and you wake up. And so that, external body sensations could get incorporated into your dream. So if you're sitting up, I can see how that one could happen. But people have them lying in bed. And so why does that happen? I heard a researcher thought that it was because you're falling asleep and therefore you're falling in your dream. But I don't, who knows what that could be either. One other explanation I thought of is when you sleep and are in REM sleep, you have inner eardrum oscillations in addition to so like when your eyes move, even when you're awake, your eardrums also move to like look with your ears at what your eyes are looking at. And so, your ears control your vestibular system and your body sensations and stuff like that. So maybe something weird is going on with them and people have like weird body sensations like falling, or who knows? I mean, I guess I don't know if maybe that verges too close on dream interpretation.
Alex, there's your problem right there.
Yeah.
Your ears are always plugged, so no wonder you can't remember any.
This is true. Yeah, it might be that might be the problem. Yeah.
You're a plug sleeper.
I have to go and get my ears candled.
Candled.
Oh, yeah, I like ear candling. My sister, I guess they do it for her.
Yeah, it's okay. So how about if you win the lottery in your dream?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to, it's kind of like those types of specific dream scenarios probably is easier for people to interpret because there's a clear emotion associated with it. But again, I don't have as many.
How many times have you won the lottery in your dream?
I don't know why you might have that. I mean, I could make up some reasons, but
That'd be interesting.
Alex, have you ever won money in your dream?
No, I've always owed money in my dreams.
Oh, wait a sec. You do remember. So there you go. You do remember.
Yeah,
so
I only remember the bad dreams. No, I only tend to remember dreams that have a very sort of strange nature. I don't remember okay, let me give you a quick example because I know we're getting close to the end of the hour. But there was one dream where I was in the St. Lawrence River that was dry. There was no water in the river. In my car, stuck in the mud for some stupid reason. And that's how weird it is. This is why I remember these dreams because they're so weird. And then so anyway, I get out of the car, I walk up the embankment, and I'm in this forest somewhere, and I hear this sort of chanting going on in the distance. See, I told you, this is weird. So I'm walking towards the chanting, and I'm getting bit by bugs constantly, right? Until someone...
I have a phobia of bugs. I know you do.
Well, yeah. But so I'm getting swarmed with all these bugs, and this individual comes out of nowhere and gives me this sort of like this ointment to put on, this sort of like, sway away the bugs. And I'm like, okay, great. So now he's motioning me to follow him towards the chanting, and I'm walking towards him, and then I trip over. And this is another instance of sort of like flight kind of dream. So I'm walking towards it, or following the guy walking towards the chanting, and I trip over a log, and I don't hit the ground again. I start floating, and that's where the dream ends. Like I'm not flying, but I'm floating in this dream, and then it ends. And I wake up and I'm like looking around. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I mean, this is the second dream I've had where flying kind of was involved. Aside from the other weird stuff, like, the insects, the fact that I'm in a dry riverbed, mosquitoes are biting the hell out of me and all of this stuff. But the flying part of it is the second time I've had. And I don't remember many of my dreams, but the weird ones like that, I do remember.
That's really crazy.
It is
Remember what the
crazy.
chanting sounded like?
Sorry?
I want to hear the chanting. The chanting.
Oh yeah, that's this happened years ago. I don't even remember it.
You can't remember the chanting. That seems to be the best part of it, though.
It was more like a humming. It's like a humming chant.
So you go from a chanting to a humming.
Well, it sounded like it because I was so far away from it, so it sounded like a humming. You know what I mean? It's like, what the hell? I'm like listening to this thing. It's like, this is weird. Yeah, but anyway, weird stuff.
Okay. Karen, get your information out there for our listeners if they want to find more about you and your study, and if they wanted to contact you about some sort of information, get all your information out there for them.
Yeah, well, my email is karenkonkoly@gmail.com, so they could email me if they want. And my boss's Twitter account, that's KAP101, and so he tweets about our study sometimes. So.
Well, Karen, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been extremely interesting, and it's been great to have you.
Thanks for having me, too. It was great to talk to you guys.
Take care.
You too.
Good night. Wow, very, very interesting, dude. I can't hear you.
I said, sorry, I had the mute button on. I said, yes, I've been wanting to have someone on for, to talk about dreaming for a while now. It's like, and finally I found someone. Ron said, I strongly dislike dreaming. Is there anything one can do to purposely keep from dreaming besides sleeping, or not sleeping rather? Plenty of alcohol, Ron, seems to work.
I detest that.
What?
I detest that.
Detest what?
What you just said.
The alcohol part?
I don't think that works at all. I think that I think that heightens.
Doesn't work for me.
Well, because look at what is it with you and your ghost deterrent, your dream deterrent.
I know.
What else is there? What else are you going to put on your resume?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna put some other kind of deterrent in my resume. That seems to be the going trend.
It's the 40 Creek, man.
It is the 40 Creek. I think that's what you should. Ron, 40 Creek. Buy the 40 Creek. It'll prevent you from dreaming.
There you go. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
How's he going to get 40 Creek down there?
I can send it to him.
Oh, you heard that, Ron. Ron, I'd take him up on that.
Yeah.
I'd take him up on that.
No, 40 Creek is sold in the U.S.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it is. Not all states, but I know some. One individual in New York was able to get a hold of it in his state, so I'm pretty sure it's sold in the U.S. It might not be as easy to find, but
well, he's over in the Illinois area
that's
too,
right.
isn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
He may not want some of that crooked Canadian whiskey, though.
It's good whiskey, man. It's good whiskey.
It's not good enough, though. It's not. You're not dreaming.
That's right, but that's what Ron wants. He doesn't want to dream.
Well, good enough for him then.
Yeah, there you go.
You're gonna have to switch up then.
I'm gonna have to switch up to something else. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe get some Newfie Screech or something.
Newfie Screech. Oh, Ron doesn't drink. Oh well. Oh well.
Huh?
Sorry. Ron said he doesn't drink. Sorry, but I can't help you then.
Kevin says Alex can never have enough 40 Creek.
That's right. Kevin knows.
Huh?
So Kevin knows. He even bought me the double barrel. 40 Creek double barrel.
Double barrel.
Yeah.
Double barrel. It was aged in a double barrel and two barrels.
Yep.
What's the difference?
It's a smoother whiskey.
Is it smoother? Is there more alcohol?
No, it's the alcohol content's the same, but it's a smoother taste. It's not as harsh as the Barrel Select or the Copper Pot. I mean, okay. For people who don't,
here, holy, he's really throwing out the words.
For
here.
people who don't, for people who don't drink whiskey, you're not gonna know what the hell I'm talking about. Whiskey for a lot of people is just you take a sip and they're like make that whiskey face. It's like kind of one of those. But
but the same could be said for beer too. I mean, there's people that you drink a beer and go, "What the fuck? What is this?"
Right,
Stinky
but whiskey's
socks?
it's harsh.
Stinky socks?
Yeah, exactly. Beer's not as harsh of a flavor as whiskey can be to someone who's never tried either. If they try a beer, depending on the type of beer, because there's some beer that's very like sour and very harsh, but for the most part, whiskey will get to you really. Depending, it doesn't matter what kind of whiskey you get; it will get to you initially if you're not used to it.
Have you ever had a bourbon barreled beer?
I haven't. Don't think I have. No.
Then have one of those and let me know what you think.
Sure. I'll try it.
There's
you're gonna have to give me some name brands so I know what to look for.
Well, Kevin says smooth is the key.
Yeah. It is the key.
I want to thank Karen for coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, we've only, we've touched base on lucid dreaming and astral projection and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we've never, like you said, we've never really had anybody who's in the know on the show to talk about it.
That's right.
And now, do you feel satisfied now that we've had that person on?
Well, I feel satisfied from a scientific angle, yes. Now I want to try to get someone on about lucid dreaming from a sort of mystical, paranormal sense.
Oh, come on. They could, you know what? That's like just bringing on a charlatan and they'll tell you anything and you'd believe it. So I want to know more about my dream, though. I honestly, that really freaked me out.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like you're not going to get an answer about something like that because it's very complex. You know, you could look at,
dude. It literally felt like. I don't want to sound hokey, but Matrix-like.
right?
You know, you're
Yep.
patched into this
Yep.
greater whatever.
So it's like I was saying before, the Akashic record, right? So some people believe that the brain is more of a sort of receiver rather than its own entity.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially your personality and who you are is downloaded from the Akashic record. And that's, it's kind of like a two-way street. So your experience, basically your brain is the transmitter receiver that allows you to be who you are, but your fundamental self is up there in the Akashic record, right? So maybe this dream is sort of symbolic of that, where you were kind of downloading information from that sort of realm or uploading to that realm, and you just sort of felt drained.
Okay.
Right? That's the only thing I can think of, because it doesn't make any sense why you would feel physically drained after having something like a dream like that.
It was pretty freaky, man.
I can imagine. Right? Oh, lovely. Look, it's the cone head.
I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's one of those things. Take me to your leader scenarios.
Yeah, take me to your leader set. Yeah, I mean, when I woke up from that, I was drained physically and mentally, and I honestly did not want to fall back asleep because I was afraid something was going to happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
What? I don't know. I mean, like, was I like experiencing? I don't know what.
Well, I mean, if you had this dream, and it sounds to me like it was a lucid dream. If you had this, or a very vivid dream, if not lucid, because lucid dreaming, from what I understand, and this is something we should have asked Karen when she was on, but the difference between a vivid dream and a lucid dream, I believe, is a lucid dream is you're aware that you're dreaming, and you can experience the fullness of the dream because you're aware of it. Whereas a vivid dream, you're not necessarily aware you're dreaming, but it's very realistic.
It's very realistic.
Right. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
One, you're aware. The other one, you're not necessarily aware you're dreaming. Right.
But there was so much I really wish I could remember from this. And again, like I said, what I remember is only like obviously a fraction, like many dreams. You only sort of remember the meat and bones, but you don't remember the surrounding sort of aspects that lead up to the meat and bones. And with this, I honestly, I'm in this, it felt like, this hollowed out mansion, old mansion. It was a really freaky place.
Yeah.
And I'm in there, from what I can remember, by myself with this other guy that I couldn't tell you who this person was. I've never been to this place in any other dreams. I've never seen this guy from any other dreams. And what we were doing, it just felt like somebody was literally inside my mind, or I was in somebody else's mind. It was just really like unexplainable.
Yeah.
Other that, we were both doing this sort of thing that, when we did it the first time, it was like, wow, okay. When we came back, wow, we just did this. Let's do it again. And the second time, and it was during the second time that we did this, I woke up. And it was almost like I probably woke up at the wrong time, because like I said, felt so drained mentally and physically.
So it could be a scenario, and I'm grasping at straws here, obviously, because it's really tough to say exactly what it is that you experience. But succubus is not, obviously, that's more of a waking up, like your wake experience.
I don't think that. No.
However, have you ever considered a psychic vampire attack?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that was it. I honestly, I don't think it was that either. I think, like I said, I think it was something on a much larger scale than that. I really do.
Okay.
If I was like a psychic vampire, I probably would have said yeah if I was awake and conscious and going about my sort of daily routine or whatever, and then all of a sudden bang, this sort of thing happens. I would say, okay, that's a possibility. But this, I mean, yeah, okay, yeah, it's a possibility. Anything's a possibility, Alex. But was it here? I don't think so. I think this was something on a much larger scale, much larger meaning, if you will.
Well, I would suggest, I'm sure you know this already, but I would suggest just trying to see if you can find any sort of similarities with other people who have experienced something like this, and then see what the consensus is based on that, right?
So are you saying I gotta find somebody else as crazy as I am?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, hold on. We're going to log off on New Visions.
Yep.
So hold tight. For those of you who are listening on New Visions, we're just going to go a little longer here on YouTube here. Join us over at YouTube, youtube.com/user/Nocturnal Frequency 1, or just type in Nocturnal Frequency Radio in the search box on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in on New Visions. Thank you, Karen, for joining us and talking about lucid dreaming and so much more. Great information. Take care, everyone, and we're not broadcasting next Sunday night, but we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Okay, so we signed out there. Yeah. So, anyways, like I said, it just seemed like something was just a little larger on a larger scale. And I think that's probably why I was afraid to fall back asleep initially.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I eventually fell back asleep, but.
Well, I mean, I can understand that, because, I mean, if you have a dream of that intensity and then, you snap awake or you come awake or however it is, and then you feel physically drained and sort of mentally drained, I'd be afraid to go back to sleep too, because you just don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening. You don't know whether something is actually draining you physically or whether it's just a figment of your imagination. You don't want to take that chance, right? So I can understand why that's happened, or why you didn't want to go back to sleep.
Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Not to that extent, no. I've had some, like the dreams, like the dream that last one I shared when Karen was on about being in that forest. That was a weird ass dream. Like
that is a weird ass dream.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, and okay, I omitted some information, like the fact that I was in that riverbed. It was dry, but the reason why I got out of the car. First of all, I don't even know why I was in the fucking car in the middle of the St. Lawrence River that's dried out. That's number one. But the reason why I ran out and went up the embankment is because the river started flooding back. So the river, I was looking behind, and it was just this huge wall of like, sort of like almost like a tsunami kind of coming towards the car. So I had to get out of the car and run up the embankment, and otherwise I would have been drowned. But it was just weird. And then once, like I said, once I was out of the riverbed, I kept hearing this chanting, and it was sort of like ominous. like an ominous chanting. I don't remember the exact chant itself, but it was like weird. It was very, very weird. And I seem to remember dreams where I'm sort of flying or floating for some stupid reason. Kind of weird.
Flying or floating.
Yeah. That's kind of weird.
That is weird. That is weird.
It is weird.
I mean, like I've had some weird ass dreams. Like, I mean, dreams that just like, wow, okay, what the, you know.
Yeah.
But again, you don't remember everything about the dream. But
no.
This, like I said, it just felt so different. Like it was intense, but it wasn't intense to the point where I'm like, okay. But what I think the weird part about it was the whole, I don't know, uploading, downloading, or whatever was going on in terms of the experiment that we were doing with our minds, going to a different realm, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And, experiencing that. That's what I wish I can remember exactly where we went to, because it played out in the dream.
Right.
Like whatever it was, it played out, and then we came back and said, "Oh wow, okay, cool. We did it." But let's do it again, and try it again. And of course, we go try it again. I really wish that sort of small little excerpt as to what it was, what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no, I know. It's one of those things, like anything else. Like anytime you have like a weird ass dream like that, you wanna know as much about it as possible. But the unfortunate part is that there's no guide out there available. That you have your dream interpretation books, but they're not a guide. They're not.
Yeah.
It's more of, maybe this is what it is. You know what I mean? Just because some people have experienced this and this is the result of it. But what you experience is something more. You wouldn't find something like this in a dream interpretation book, I don't think, or anything close to it, right? So like I said, my best suggestion would be to see if anyone else, you have to do your research online, unfortunately, and see if anybody else has experienced something similar to what you've experienced, and see what the consensus is based on that. Because realistically speaking, unless you go to someone who, for lack of a better term, studies this, and at the same time, it's like, do people legitimately study this sort of stuff? They don't, right? So it's based on their own personal take on it. So you're no better off than looking it up yourself, right?
Alex.
Yeah.
What if I have a dream tonight that says, "I am your overlord"?
Well then,
Then run for hell. Run in your dream to wherever you can hide. It's just freaky shit, dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, I kind of equate it to, I've had weird shit happen in this house, and you know that. I've told the listeners I've had weird stuff happen in the house itself. In fact, I had one incident that I've shared, and I'm like, okay, is this another part? Is this am I being hijacked by a ghost? Maybe. Is that a possibility while you're sleeping? Can a ghost hijack your dreams? There's a good question.
It is a good question, because
how many times have you heard that? Can a ghost hijack your dream?
You don't hear it too much, no.
No.
And I think it's completely plausible, because you're talking about an entity that doesn't exist physically. So they have more free reign, so to speak, as far as where they can go. And dreams are just one realm that the non-physical can probably attach itself to.
And I mean, we don't fully understand what quote unquote ghosts are. I hate using that word, but we don't fully understand what it is, if it's anything at all. But
Right.
If you want to equate it, people who have sort of passed on, have they passed on, or have they moved on to another realm? Is there a possibility that those people are able to hijack your dreams or hijack your sleep, if you will?
I think it can be possible.
Right. And this is wow. I think we really need to find somebody to talk about that.
Yeah. I think why
that's really interesting.
It is very interesting. And this is why I kind of mentioned the psychic vampire attack, because I know a lot of people seem to, like, we haven't touched upon this subject very often ourselves, but when most people hear psychic vampire attacks, they assume, maybe incorrectly, that it's strictly in the waking world, where you have someone who's draining you of your physical energy. And I've experienced something of that nature myself. However, it's not necessarily exclusive to the physical realm, because if someone is a psychic vampire, and psychic vampires, just as the name suggests, they can be, they can attack remotely, psychically, for lack of a better term. And they can drain you of your energy, but not just in the waking world, but also when you're asleep. So if they're doing it when you're sleeping, you might be dreaming of something that kind of relates to that sort of scenario. Like in your instance, when you're dreaming of tapping into this sort of whatever it is, and you're uploading or downloading, that could be your brain's interpretation of what's happening to you at that moment. And at that moment, it could be something that's draining you physically of your energy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, yeah. And you know what? I would love to have someone on to discuss this topic even further. And I'll see if I can find anyone who's been willing to come on.
Okay, that's your assignment for the next week.
All right, cool.
April 11th, we have our good friend Vito Marchese coming on.
Vito Marchese, yeah. That's going to be a good show.
Vito Marchese of November's Doom is coming on to talk to us. And you know what? He's going to probably pick your brain. And I told him, you probably won't find much when it comes to movies.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not going to, not from me anyway.
Watching some movies.
Not from me. No.
He loves his sci-fi flicks. You know how he is.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. I won't be of much help.
It's always good to have. Vito's great. I love Vito, and it'll be great to catch up with him, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's been doing a Twitch live show on Twitch at least once a week, if not a couple times a week, where he just starts playing some November's Doom tunes. He takes requests from listeners or viewers of the show. So if you're a November's Doom fan,
and you should be,
yeah, you should be. Check it out. I don't have his Twitch sort of info on me right now, but I will. I'll post it on the Facebook group there for that. And that's April 11th.
Mm-hmm.
April 9th.
9th or 11th?
April 11th. April 9th, we are going to shoot some more.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We are going back to the woodlot.
That's right. That's right, kids. We're going back.
What will we find in the woodlot this time?
Yeah.
You know what what I wanted to employ is night vision goggles.
They're not cheap.
No, but I'd like to employ them because that was sort of give us an idea that, look at, there's nobody with us.
Yeah.
When this is all going on.
No, I agree.
Because there's a lot of shit going on. And of course, if there's any coyotes in the area.
That's true. Yeah. We want to make sure we can see them.
Got to make sure we see them. I mean, for the most part, they'll leave us alone. They won't bother us, but you want to make sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyways, dude, I think that's about it. How about you?
I agree.
All right. I want to thank Karen for joining us this evening to talk about lucid dreaming and more. Northwestern University, there's a huge study going on there that she was a part of.
Yep.
She continues to study it. Very intriguing. She sent me the link. I got to find the link for the app. There's an app that you can download on for Android. I can't do it on my iPhone, dude.
That's your problem.
I know. So I'm saying I can't download it on my iPhone.
Yeah, I got it. She put it on the Skype chat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you to Karen for joining us. Incredibly fun to have her on, and very, very informative. Great information on lucid dreaming and more. Hey, until April 11th, when our good friend Vito Marchese joins us from November's Dune, I want to guys, take care. Happy Easter if you celebrate it. Happy Easter. That's coming up next weekend, right?
It is, yes.
Everyone enjoy. Take care, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, of course, here on our YouTube channel and, of course, New Visions Radio. Take care, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.